Hello there. Now, there have been several stories in the news this week, and it was about women who came to their demise at the hands of uh, men who they were involved with. Um, and I'm not at all shifting responsibility or blaming the victim or anything like that, but I am just kind of pondering why, because these stories are kind of wild and kind of out there, and I just don't quite understand what they were thinking. Now, part of me thinks that this came out of the goodness of their heart, these relationships, but um, that needs to be guided properly. The goodness of your heart, it needs to be guided properly. Um, Now, two of these women are women who got killed during family visits at a prison in California. Um, they were both married to inmates, and both of these men were convicted of violent crimes and were doing very, very long sentences. So I have no idea how that situation is appealing to anyone at all. I just don't get it. And anyway, both of these men killed these women during the family visit. And um, these are a few months apart, so I really don't understand the second one, because the first story came to light after the second story um, came to light because of the media. And so, like, we didn't know about it, but I bet that woman who was killed by her husband, who was incarcerated, I'm sure she knew it. And I'm just like, didn't that give you pause? I mean, now I do kind of suspect that both of these women were probably trying to end the relationships. And that's kind of probably what brought that on. That's just me. That's the narrative in my mind. I don't know. No one will probably ever know. But anyway, I just do not understand what makes a person choose that path, especially with such violent criminals. One of them shot a woman in her head, and the woman was blinded because of that and partially paralyzed. And the other man shot four men in an apartment who had gotten together to watch a sporting event. He had broken in looking for drugs. He didn't find enough, found a little bit of marijuana, and then I guess he just got upset and decided to kill everyone in there. And this is who this woman chose as a husband. I don't get it. And I watched that show, Love After Lockup, and a lot of the people who choose these inmates, there's something a little bit off with a lot of them. They're very delusional, and the inmates are just hustlers. I mean, there are people who made their way in this underground economy. There are people who like to kind of live on the edge of society, and yeah, I'm sure there are some people who go the straight and narrow, and that's great, but that's a heck of a chance to take. And there's only one you. And I mean, to you, you're only one you. So, like, you're invaluable to yourself. So it's like, why would you gamble with that? I mean, I don't know. I don't like to judge those sort of things because, matters of the heart, I don't really think are for the internet, because there's way too much nuance and way too many variables. But I just don't understand what would make someone choose an inmate for a spouse that's doing like long such a long sentence, and they were accused of such violent crimes. I just don't get it. And I do feel like if you're willing to compromise that way to have a significant other, there are other ways that you could compromise, other things you could compromise on, so you could have a significant other that's free, and not violent, and you have a far better chance of survival. I don't understand. And I'm not even like judging. There's no need for me to judge, because I mean, I mean, consequences have been dealt, so I'm not being mean, I'm not judging. I'm just really wondering. There's this song that the SOS band did, and I just always thought these lyrics were terrible. And they were like, I don't care what the others say, just be good to me. And the whole song is about this one woman involved with this man with a horrible reputation, and she's just like, I don't care what the about the other girls, just be good to me. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And I mean, I've had friends and like relatives who are jerks, and I kind of overlook their jerk tendencies. But you know what? That eventually kind of bit me in the behind, because if you have a friend or some kind of a relationship with a person's a jerk, sure enough, it's going to be your day one of these days. Now, the people who I'm talking about, they were never jerks on the level as these inmates were, but I mean, they were jerks. And so, I mean, just I don't know. I just kind of question those decisions. And I used to watch that show Lock Up, not Love After Lock Up, but just Lock Up. It came on like MSNBC. It was a documentary, and honestly, these inmates are smarter than everybody else. They really are. They are smarter and more talented than everyone else. So really, you're no match. And honestly, I think that almost anyone that got involved with like talking to an inmate, I think almost anyone could be like scammed and, convinced to do like some crazy, you know. I think anyone could be susceptible if they like open themselves up to that. So people kind of need to be careful and, make good decisions. And I guess I just kind of relate to some of these women because most of these women I'm talking about are like 40s and 50s. One of them was in her 60s. One of the ones that got killed at the home visit. And yeah, I guess I just kind of like related to it. And there was one who had a long marriage. Her husband was an inmate, and got out, and they had a long relationship together, and who knows what went on. The mother and her mother, his mother-in-law, was on TV saying, "Oh, he was wonderful. I thought he was great." Da, 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 da. But I mean, he was an inmate, and he at one point, and he just learned to con people. And I feel like even if you go to jail for a non-violent offense, just being in that environment, you're going to probably learn how to be kind of a con artist. And I mean, that's just not going to be any match for someone who's just been on the outside, just like going to school and going to work every day. I think that, you really can't match wits with that. So I don't know. I don't quite understand the choices. Now, this last situation was this woman who got shot in her own home. The man, her boyfriend she was breaking up with, stood on the front lawn, shot into the house, shot her. And there's a ring cam video of it. And he was 33, she was 51. Now I'm 50. I do not understand dating someone that young. Like, I don't see the appeal. I understand it slightly better for men, but the way a lot of these men on the internet talk about like younger women, I don't quite see the appeal. Like, and no offense to anyone young, I just don't value youth in a relationship. I really don't. I just don't. Yeah. And so anyway, this 51-year-old woman was involved with this 33-year-old man. He wanted her to give up her grandchildren. She had adopted them. He wanted her to give them up. She chose her grandchildren. It caused a rift, as you can imagine, and he ends up standing in the front yard and shooting at her, and she dies. And I just really wonder, like, a 33-year-old with a 51-year-old. Now, I mean, there's nothing illegal or really even perverse about that, because, I mean, he's a good and grown man. When she met him, the relationship was like 4 years. So, I mean, he was, good and grown man. But what do you talk about with somebody that young? Like, I don't get it. And I think about myself, like in my early 30s, and I'm just like, I mean, there were still so many things I hadn't experienced, so many lessons that I hadn't learned. And I just think about myself in my early 30s, and it's very different than me now. And I just really couldn't relate. And also, another thing for me, when it comes to talking to people, like sometimes when you talk to young people, you make some sort of like a reference, like pop culture reference from even like 25 years ago, and they won't get it. Like, I couldn't really imagine like having a relationship with someone where you have to like explain stuff to them all the time. So I just really don't get that. I don't understand it. And I watched that show, 90 Day Fiance. I don't watch it as much as I used to, but I used to watch it all the time. And older women with younger men, that's a common combination on that show. And there have been couples like that on that show. And I was convinced that when the cameras were off, he was beating her up. Like, if you watch that show, Darcy and the guy from the Netherlands, there's no doubt in my mind that there has been some violence in that relationship when the cameras were off, because he would get so upset and so frustrated over like small little things. And it really wasn't worth all that. And there's just always like a little bit of like a toxic edge to most of those relationships on that show. In fact, the only one that seems somewhat healthy would be Rebecca and Saeed. If you watch that show that I'm talking about, if not, don't worry about it. But they're the only ones who seem somewhat healthy, even though Rebecca basically catfished him. But anyway, that's here nor there. So anyway, all I'm saying is just I don't know. First of all, avoid people that have been in the criminal justice system, just because, first of all, they're smarter than you, and they're smarter in ways that you're not going to be. And I am not here to really give advice, but I'm going to give that advice. I think that that's fairly safe, even if it's like non-violent. But those guys were violent. Now, I don't know about the woman whose husband was on the outside. I don't even know what he did, but nonetheless, he was incarcerated for a while. And I just feel like, think about the influences. Now, they were married for like 20 years. They were like in their 50s. So they got married in their 30s. So he was in jail as a young man. He came of age and was probably mentored by inmates. And it's just like, I don't know that that ever really leaves our person completely. In my experience with most people, not all, but most, a leopard never really changes its spots. So, yeah, there's all that. My condolences to the families and the people that were affected by that. But I really think that women need to, the manosphere is not wrong. Women do need to make some better choices. And I do think that goodness and sweetness and wanting to help people needs to be directed in the right way. I do think that there's a wrong way to direct all of that. And it can lead to tragedy. So anyway, just wanted to kind of get that off my chest and talk about that. Bye.